भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र शत श्री श्रीमद् भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र शत श्री श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती प्रभुपाद की नाम आचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय, मायापुर नवदीप धाम की जय, गंगा माया की जय, जमुना माया की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, तुलसी महारानी की जय, समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। All glorious to some devotees, all glorious to some devotees, all glorious to some devotees. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Welcome everybody to Srimad Bhagavatam reading with His Holiness Jayādvaita Swami. It is Monday, November 10th in 2025, and we're beginning with 4:23:13. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Guru Maharaj, would you like to begin with 13? You're muted, Guru Maharaj.
How about that? Okay. Evam savira pravara sangyojatmanamatmani brahma bhuto dridham kale tatyaja swam kalevaram. In due course of time, when Prithu Maharaj was to give up his body, he fixed his mind firmly upon the lotus feet of Krishna, and thus, completely situated on the Brahmabhuta platform, he gave up the material body. Purport. According to a Bengali proverb, whatever spiritual progress one makes in life will be tested at the time of death. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also confirmed, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajityante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavata. Those who are practicing Krishna consciousness know that their examination will be held at the time of death. If one can remember Krishna at death, he is immediately transferred to Goloka Vrindavan, or Krishna Loka, and thus his life becomes successful. Prithu Maharaj, by the grace of Krishna, could understand that the end of his life was near, and thus he became very jubilant and proceeded to completely give up his body on the Brahmabhuta stage by practicing the yogas process. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Shahagana Raganatan Vidam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Pradijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prashabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Horipriye Vansha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I find it significant here that when the time for death came, Prithu Maharaj became jubilant. In fact, he thought, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti, giving up the body at this time, becoming a pure spiritual form, immediately let me go to Vaikuntha and serve the feet of the Lord. This was his great eagerness. Fixing his mind Atmanam on the Lord's form, or on his own form as an associate of the Lord, Atmani, becoming a pure spiritual form, Brahmabhuta, he left his body. So this is the spirit of a pure devotee, not thinking, oh no, I have to die, but jubilant. Now finally it's over. I get to leave this material body behind and go back to Godhead. So Brahmabhuta Prasanatma Nashochati Nakankshati. For one who's on the spiritual platform, happiness is natural. He has no hankerings, no lamentation. So he can think in pure consciousness, let me go join Krishna. Everything's tested at the time of death, and here we find the perfection, remembering Krishna at the end. So he gave up the body by practicing the yogic process. It is thoroughly described in the following verses, how one can voluntarily give up this body and return home back to Godhead. Take a cushion. The yogic process practiced by Prithu Maharaj at the time of death accelerates the giving up of this body while one is in sound health physically and mentally. Every devotee desires to give up the body while it is sound physically and mentally. This desire was also expressed by King Kulashekar in his Mukunda Mala Stotra. Krishna Tvadiya Padapankaja Panjarantam Adyaiva me Vishatu Manasa Rajahangsa Prana Prayana Samaye Kapapata Pittai Kantavarodhana Vidho Smaranam Kudaste. King Kulashekar wanted to give up his body while in a healthy state, and he thus prayed to Krishna to let him die immediately, while he was in good health and while his mind was sound. When a man dies, he is generally overpowered by mucus and bile, and thus he chokes. Since it is very difficult to vibrate any sound while choking, it is simply by Krishna's grace that one can chant Hare Krishna at the time of death. However, by situating oneself in the Muktasana position, a yogi can immediately give up his body and go to whatever planet he desires. A perfect yogi can give up his body whenever he desires through the practice of dying. Generally we find, especially these days, the person desperately wants to stave off death. Somehow or other, let me not die. Somehow or other, let me not die. So we'll try this, we'll try that. Desperately. But Prithu Maharaj, oh good, we're going to die. And not only good, but let's, if we can move the date up, so much the better. Accelerate the process. And therefore he practiced this method of yoga. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, seeing that one of the siddhis dying at will had arrived, Prithu developed a desire to accept that, just as he had accepted Gyan, since he desired to go quickly to the side of the Lord. Being taught the method of leaving the body by that siddhi, who was like an expert in karma rituals, Prithu easily prepared to leave his body by his will. That is described in 6 verses. We were discussing the other day how a devotee has mystic powers. So this was a mystic siddhi that arrived to serve Prithu Maharaj. The ability to leave this world at one's own will. Bhishma Dev famously had that power. And the yogi can do that. When he's ready, he can fix his mind on the super soul and amalgamate the elements of his body into their original sources and leave this world. Prabhupada comments that ideally one can leave in sound mind and sound, if not sound, at least capable body, so that he can fix his mind. Not that one drags on till the end and the body is finished, the mind is finished, everything is finished. But while one still has strength to master one's mind and senses, one voluntarily leaves. One voluntarily leaves. So that's introduced in this verse. Any comments or questions?
Maharaj? I remember I saw a video of Gopal Krishna Maharaj doing arti in his sleep.
In his sleep?
I don't know if he was in a coma or sleep, but he was not conscious, but he was doing arti.
Sure.
So it almost seems that this concern, if someone is Krishna conscious enough, it doesn't matter what state of mind they're in, they'll still express their Krishna consciousness.
Well, his state of mind will be Krishna conscious, even under the worst circumstances. Krishna conscious person, just like while he's sleeping, he may still think of Krishna. And Prabhupada gave that example. I mentioned it the other day, that his, I think his uncle, who was in the cloth business, who used to, during the day, he would be quoting the price of this cloth, price of that. So in his sleep, he was quoting cloth prices, because his consciousness was absorbed in such things. So the devotee whose mind is absorbed in Krishna, even while sleeping, or even while in coma, will think of Krishna. I have one god sister, late Vilasini Dasi. We went to visit her, a whole group of devotees, in hospice. We got a message that she was going to die at any moment, and that she was in coma. So we went to the, I think it was hospice or hospital, and there she was, pale as a white sheet, and in a coma. But when the devotees came, she asked for her beads. Apparently she'd been in coma because, well, what else are you going to do surrounded by karmi doctors and hospital environment? But when the devotees came and began chanting Hare Krishna, then she came out of her coma and asked for her beads and was chanting Hare Krishna. So it may appear that and doctors know that even patients who are supposedly unconscious can still perceive what's going on around them to some degree, and are still conscious in their own way. Therefore, doctors are advised to be careful about what they talk about in the presence of even a comatose patient. Because there was some operation, the doctor was finishing the operation, the patient was thoroughly sedated, and the doctor said, okay, let's stitch her up and go home. And the patient panicked. The doctor's going to just throw in a few stitches and head off, because she was conscious at a certain level. There are, of course, out-of-death experiences widely published, where even in what ought to be totally comatose situation, a patient was able to report later just exactly what was going on. So the soul has powers that extend beyond what we might normally think. But in any case, the point is that when one is fixed in Krishna consciousness, then in any situation, even at the time of death, what is that? Stityasya mantakalepi brahmanirvana mrishchati. even at the time of death, one will remember Krishna and become and be totally fit for going back to Godhead. Anything else? Yes?
Nothing else in the chat.
Nothing else in the chat. Okay. Although not guaranteeing steadiness of mind and strength of body, even in the modern day, one can accelerate death by giving up eating and drinking. My mother did that, my grandmother did that, Yogeshwar Prabhu's mother did that, and others that we hear about. By giving up eating and drinking, they can accelerate the time of death. All right, why stretch things out? Why? We're ready, let's go. Let's not tarry and put things off. So here, of course, in the context of pure devotional service, Prithu Maharaj wanted to do that. He was fully prepared and ready to go. And courageous also, it's mentioned, that's there in the verse. Veera Pravara. He was the chief of heroes, so he was courageous. He was courageous. And Dhritam, fixed. So Tatyaja Swam Kalevaram, he gave up his body. Sampirya Payum Parshnibhyam Vayum Utsarayan Chanaihi Nabhyam Kotesh Vavastapya Hrid Ura Kanta Shirshani. When Maharaj Prithu practiced a particular yogic sitting posture, he blocked the doors of his anus with his ankles, pressed his right and left calves, and gradually raised his life air upward, passing it on to the circle of his navel, up to his heart and throat, and finally pushed it upward to the central position between his two eyebrows. Purport. The sitting posture described herein is called Muktasana. In the yoga process, after following the strict regulative principles controlling sleeping, eating, and mating, one is allowed to practice the different sitting postures. The ultimate aim of yoga is to enable one to give up this body according to his own free will. One who has attained the ultimate summit of yoga practice can live in the body as long as he likes, or as long as he is not completely perfect, leave the body to go anywhere within or outside the universe. Some yogis leave their bodies to go to the higher planetary systems and enjoy the material facilities therein. However, intelligent yogis do not wish to waste their time within this material world at all. They do not care for the material facilities in higher planetary systems, but are interested in going directly to the spiritual sky, back home, back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada treats this subject at length in his small book, Easy Journey to Other Planets, how the yogi can do all of this. These subjects are also described in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. How the yogi raises his life air, blocks all the different holes in the body through which the life air might escape, and leaves through the chakra at the top of the head to go back to the spiritual world. The materialists want to visit various planets. They want to go to the moon, or they want to go to Mars. They're keen to explore different planets, even though they think those planets are just desolate. Still, let us go to these planets. Or the karmis want to be promoted to the heavenly planets. Or sometimes the yogis also become attracted and want to see these, what's going on in different planets. But a pure devotee doesn't want to waste time visiting this planet or that planet on the way back to Godhead. He wants to take the direct flight and go directly back to the spiritual sky. From the description in this verse, it appears that Maharaj Prithu had no desire to promote himself to the higher planetary systems. He wanted to return home immediately, back to Godhead. Although Maharaj Prithu stopped all practice of mystic yoga after realizing Krishna consciousness, he took advantage of his previous practice and immediately placed himself on the Brahmabhuta platform in order to accelerate his return to Godhead. The aim of this particular system of asana, known as the sitting posture for liberation, or muktasana, is to attain success in Kundalini chakra and gradually raise the life from the Muladhara chakra to the Svadhisthana chakra, then to the Manipura chakra, the Anahata chakra, the Vishuddha chakra, and finally to the Agya chakra. When the yogi reaches the Agya chakra between the two eyebrows, he is able to penetrate the Brahmarandhra, or the hole in his skull, and go to any planet he desires, up to the spiritual kingdom of Vaikuntha or Krishna Loka. The conclusion is that one has to come to the Brahmabhuta stage for going back to Godhead. Brahmabhuta stage means stage of complete identification of oneself as spirit soul or as a servant of Krishna. So one has to go through these different steps. However, those who are in Krishna consciousness or who are practicing bhakti yoga, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam, can return to Godhead without even practicing the muktasana process. Let's see. The purpose of the muktasana practice is to come to the Brahmabhuta stage, for without being on the Brahmabhuta stage, one cannot be promoted to the spiritual sky. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Mam Chiyo Bhyavacharena Bhakti Yogena Sevate Sagunan Samatityaitan Brahmabhuyaya Kolpate. The Bhakti Yogi, practicing Bhakti Yoga, is always situated on the Brahmabhuta stage, Brahmabhuyaya Kolpate. If a devotee is able to continue on the Brahmabhuta platform, he enters the spiritual sky automatically after death and returns to Godhead. Consequently, a devotee need not feel sorry for not having practiced the Kundalini chakra, or not penetrating the 6 chakras one after another. As far as Maharaj Prithu was concerned, he had already practiced this process. And since he did not want to wait for the time when his death would occur naturally, he took advantage of the Shat Chakra penetration process and thus gave up the body according to his own free will and immediately entered the spiritual sky. All right, maybe let's see what's in the chat.
We have a few things in the chat. I'm wondering if someone can take the chat, if they can volunteer, since I need to leave the call. Naveen Prabhu, are you available by any chance?
Yes, I can take the chat, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Let's see. We have a comment from the first comment is from Larissa Tasman. What are the signs that a person is about to give up his body?
What are the signs that a person is about to give up his body? The signs accelerate. Of course, there's gradual deterioration, so that a medical person will say, looks like he's nearing the end, just months or days. They'll give a prognosis, unfavorable prognosis. There's no recovery. But as one reaches the end, particularly, the various systems of the body start to deteriorate. They'll start to fail. And particularly at the end, there'll be irregular breathing. Sometimes breathing is very labored. I'm taking this not from Shastra, but from being in the presence of those who are dying, and from the literature, the medical literature. There'll be maybe labored breathing, there may be difficulty in breathing, there may be even lapses in breathing. The person seems to stop breathing, but then breath comes back. But that means it's going. And the breathing may become very slow. But in different ways, irregularity of breathing. And generally there'll be discoloration of the lower extremities, the legs, the feet. There may be a kind of mottled appearance from the blood vessels, which is an indication that the person will leave presently, like within hours, it's expected.
And then a second question is, how is his consciousness functioning?
How is the consciousness functioning? Consciousness is independent of the body, finally. Even when the body is finished, Nahangyate hangyamane sharire. The soul continues to live, and the consciousness is located in the soul. It's not dependent on any physical systems. So even when the body dies, consciousness continues. But the consciousness may withdraw. That's also another symptom of oncoming death, that the person becomes inwardly focused, not always, but often it will be like that the person withdraws from outward attention and becomes inwardly focused. So consciousness is there, but now it's no longer, what's the word? expressed through external activities, but it's there internally. And finally, as we'll find in this, of course, with Prithu Maharaj, the consciousness is being raised through the different chakras. The life air is being raised through the different chakras. We won't see that externally, but that's what's going on within. And also what's going on within is that the soul is being separated from the elements of the body, particularly if one is practicing this kind of yoga. He's consciously relegating the elements found within his body to the totality of elements. So the earth is being sent back to the earth, water is being sent back to the totality of water, fire, air are being given back. They were on loan, as it were, for this body. They were being assigned for the existence of this body. Now there's no longer a need of them, so they're relinquished, or in other words, the soul is separating itself from the elements of the body. For the yogi, this is a very deliberate and conscious process. Or for the devotee, Prabhupada says there's no need to be sorry about not being able to practice all these things. The soul becomes absorbed in Krishna consciousness and automatically becomes aloof from the physical systems of this body. Hare Krishna.
And there's a comment from Jackie, which says, with the practice of developing and maintaining Krishna consciousness as prescription, it seems that the aim is to be prepared for death by making sure that one is always in this state.
Yes. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam jajachante kalevram tam tame vaiti konte sadata bhava. The whole life actually is, for a devotee, is preparation for being absorbed in Krishna consciousness and then going back home, back to Godhead. So the materialist is unprepared, unprepared and unwilling to go. He's fearful. What will happen? What will happen? I had a very close cousin who left this world a couple of years ago, and he was kind of a confident materialist and sort of cynical, but when he knew, he got a sudden diagnosis that he would die within weeks, I think, and he said, "I'm afraid." Although he'd been very confident and he talked about this Buddhist philosopher and this sense gratifier, his own ideas and so on, but then as death came, I'm afraid. He admitted, "I'm afraid." So unprepared. We don't know what death is. We don't know what it's going to bring. We don't know what to do. We're not prepared. So we panic. We desperately hold on because we don't want to go. We don't know. Who knows what will happen? But the devotee, all right, time to go. He's prepared. His whole life was involved preparing himself to die. Now the time has come. All right, let's go. Willingly. Hare Krishna.
Mari Gupta Prabhu writes, Hare Krishna Maharaj, it's worrying that after a life of trying to be Krishna conscious, everything depends on a final exam. Is there no assessment of how one's life has been spent? Only the final moment that decides everything?
Krishna, of course, is merciful. There's a quote we've heard. I read it, but I don't exactly remember where it is now. A statement of Shastra. Krishna says, even if my devotee forgets me at the time of death, I don't forget the devotee. Krishna's not so cruel or mechanical. Sorry, when the clock struck 12, you were distracted by something, so too bad. Krishna's grateful. And Krishna, the Om Krito Smara Kritam Smara. Krito Smara Kritam Smara. In the Ishopanishad, the devotee prays, please remember all that I've done for you. And Krishna does. He's not so heartless and cruel that everything depends mechanically on one moment in time. We expect that a devotee who's spent his whole life in Krishna consciousness will remember Krishna at the time of death. But if his mind is not specifically fixed on Krishna, still Krishna will remember the devotee. Hare Krishna.
And then Venkatesh Prabhu writes, is there any reference that leaving one's body in the Dham automatically goes back to Godhead?
Yes. In Brihad Bhagavatamrita, this is quoted, that one who dies in Mathura attains liberation or goes back to Godhead. Let's see if I've got that handy. It's not so easy to catch it right at the... Okay, let's see, maybe. Kashyadi Puryo, this is Skanda Purana, Yadi Nam Santi Tasam Tu Madhye Maturaiva Danya, Ya Janma Monji Vratamrityu Da Higher, Rinam Chaturadha Vidadhati Moksham. Among the various holy cities like Kashi, Mathura is most auspicious because she bestows liberation upon human beings in 4 ways. In Mathura, they may attain liberation by birth, by vows of initiation, by death, or by cremation. These 4 ways. Okay. Yeah, that was, there may be more, but that was the quotation I was thinking of. There's more there?
Yes, a follow-up. What about consideration of their past activities there? If one was not sinful there, yet not on pure devotional stage, what will be one's destination?
Well, we just read that if one dies in Mathura or one is cremated in Mathura, he's at once eligible for liberation. In other words, the place itself, and Prabhupada said that, though, those who die in Vrindavan go back to Godhead, and if they were sinful, they come back as hogs or dogs, and then after one life go back to Godhead. So the power and mercy of Vrindavan, Mayapur, is very great.
And Madhupati Prabhu quotes a verse in the chat. Even if at the time of death a devotee does not remember his service to the Lord does not forget him. This prayer is given to remind the Lord of the devotee's sacrifices. But even if there is no such reminder, the Lord does not forget the service rendered by his pure devotee.
Nice. Ishopanishad, text 17, purport. Thank you.
And one more comment from Marayagutta Prabhu. This would seem to be yet another advantage of Bhakti Yoga, that Krishna is personally involved and it's less mechanical than the others.
Yes, the Ashtanga Yoga system is a mechanical system. Of course, even there, Krishna's mercy is required. But for those who may not be practicing Ashtanga Yoga or such things, Krishna's mercy is more than sufficient. When Krishna's mercy is there, then what else is needed? Hare Krishna. Therefore, that Uddhava says that what is the need to surrender to anyone other than Krishna, who's so merciful that he gave liberation even to Putana Rakshasi, who approached him in the mood of who was a demoness. Although she was a demoness, she approached him with the mood of a mother, and Krishna took the good part. He accepted her motherly feelings and promoted her to the spiritual world. So Uddhava says, when Krishna is so merciful, why should one take shelter of anyone else? Hare Krishna.
And then for, I guess, the next text 15, would Madhupati Prabhu be available to read?
I can read. I think there's the comment by Praveen Krishna, the monkey way or the cat way.
Yes, the cat holds the kitten within its mouth, and the monkey holds on to the mother monkey. So either way, if one holds on to the lotus feet of Krishna, or if Krishna holds on to the devotee, one is assured of going back to Godhead. Okay, shall we read one more verse?
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Gurudas Jayādvaita Swami Namne Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namne Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharya Nirvesha Chashunivati Paschadeshatari. Text number 15. Utsarpayam tu tam murdane kramena nispriha vayum vayau sitau kayam tejasi ayu yujavat. In this way, Prithu Maharaj gradually raised his air of life up to the hole in his skull, whereupon he lost all desire for material existence. Gradually merged this air of life with the totality of air, his body with the totality of earth, and the fire within his body with the totality of fire. Purport. When the spiritual spark, which is described as 1/10,000th part of the tip of a hair, is forced into material existence, That spark is covered by gross and subtle material elements. The material body is composed of 5 gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and 3 subtle elements: mind, intelligence, and ego. When one attains liberation, he is freed from these material coverings. Indeed, success in yoga involves getting free from these material coverings and entering into spiritual existence. Lord Buddha's teachings of Nirvana are based on this principle. Lord Buddha instructed his followers to give up these material coverings by means of meditation and yoga. Lord Buddha did not give any information about the soul, but if one follows his instructions strictly, he will ultimately become free from the material coverings and attain nirvana. When a living entity gives up the material coverings, he remains a spirit soul. This spirit soul must enter into the spiritual sky to merge into the Brahman effulgence. Unfortunately, unless the living entity has the information of the spiritual world and the Vaikunthas, there is a 99.9% chance of his falling down again into material existence. There is, however, a small chance of being promoted to a spiritual planet from the Brahman effulgence or the Brahma Jyoti. This Brahma Jyoti is considered by impersonalists to be without variety, and the Buddhists consider it to be void. In either case, whether one accepts the spiritual sky as being without variety or void, there is none of the spiritual bliss which is enjoyed in the spiritual planets, the Vaikunthas or Krishna Loka. In the absence of varieties of enjoyment, the spirit soul gradually feels an attraction to enjoy a life of bliss. And not having any information of Krishna Loka or Vaikuntha Loka, it naturally falls down to material activities in order to enjoy material varieties. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurmritan Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Yes, so Ritu Maharaj follows his to force quickly to leave his body and enter into Krishna's service. He follows this Muktashan process and ultimately raises his air and lets up to the hole in his skull, the Kundalini chakra, the highest one, and merge his air of life with the totality of air, his body with the totality of earth, and the fire within his body with the totality of fire. Bhumi apanala vayu kamamana buddhi evacha. The 5 gross elements and the 3 subtle elements. Following the Buddhist process, one ultimately gives up these material elements and attain the stage of nirvana, void. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport mentions that 99.9% of the cases, he falls back into material existence because in that stage of void, there's no spiritual bliss as one in Bhakti Yoga process, after having the knowledge of Vaikuntha Loka and Krishna Loka, and after performing devotional services, he enters into the spiritual planet to serve the Lord in one of the rasa relationships with the Lord. While without that, either he will merge into the Brahma Jyoti and
Vairanilam amritam matedam basmantam shariram. In the Ishopanishad, the body is produced from these material elements, from earth, from water, from fire, from air, from ether, from mind, intelligence, and false ego. These, from the total reservoir of these elements, the elements are extended as this body. And now the yogi reverses the process. He returns the earth to the earth, the water to the water, the air to the air, the mind to the total element mind, and so on. So in this way, I don't need these elements anymore. I'll let them go back to just like a bank loan, you just give the money back. Now you're free. You don't owe anything. Or a renunciant leaves behind these things. All right, let the money go back to the totality of money. Let everything just go back to where it came from, and he walks away with nothing. So the yogi leaves behind these material elements and relegates them to their source and becomes free. Hare Krishna. Want to lead kirtan? Okay, Sham Sindhu.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnuvad Purnamanta Saparikajacharya Shri A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Jayādvaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Tham Ki Jai Navadip Tham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Thank you all very much, and we wish you all good evening and Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Prem